The autumn air clung to the narrow streets of the small town, carrying the faint smell of coal smoke and damp leaves. Sofia stood outside the crumbling station house, a worn leather suitcase at her feet. Her hands trembled as she clutched the letter from the agency, its Italian words half understood but full of promise. To her, it wasn't just paper, it was a doorway out of a life already mapped by routine and struggle. Her mother's voice broke against the cold morning. "You don't know these people, they will use you, Sofia." Sofia lifted her eyes, tired yet determined. "Mama, if I stay here, I will wither. I need to try, for both of us." The older woman's hands, rough from years of factory work, lingered on her daughter's coat. As though the gesture could tether her, tears welled, but Sofia stepped back. The train groaned as it arrived, its metal wheels screeching against the rails. She boarded with quick breaths, forcing herself not to look back. The countryside blurred into streaks of grey and green. She pressed her forehead against the glass, whispering her future to herself like a prayer. Milan, catwalks, cameras, a new name people would remember. The journey stretched into night. Sofia's reflection stared at her from the darkened window, youthful yet already carrying the weight of sacrifice. Around her, strangers murmured in languages she barely recognized. She clutched her suitcase tighter, hiding the fear behind the mask of a dreamer. When the train finally hissed into Milan, the city swallowed her at once. Neon lights painted the streets in restless colors. Cars honked. Laughter spilled from cafes, and towering buildings dwarfed her small figure. The noise pressed against her ears, both intoxicating and overwhelming. She dragged her suitcase through the square, following the directions scribbled by her so-called agent. Each corner promised opportunity. Each shadow whispered doubt. The world seemed to shimmer with possibility. But behind it lurked something unseen. At a payphone booth, she dialed the number she had memorized. After a few rings, a man's voice answered smoothly in accented English. "You arrived? Good. Tomorrow. Casting. I will meet you at the hotel lobby." "Which hotel?" she asked. "You'll see. Don't worry. Trust me." The line went dead, leaving Sofia clutching the receiver in silence. A chill slipped down her spine, but she forced herself to breathe. This was how success worked, she told herself. Fast, decisive, without room for doubt. Later, in a modest guest house, she unpacked carefully. The suitcase held little two dresses, shoes scuffed at the heels, a small photograph of her mother folded into the lining. She placed the picture by the bedside, whispering, "I'll make you proud." Sleep came slowly. The city's heartbeat pulsed through the thin walls, echoing in her chest. She dreamed of flashing cameras and voices chanting her name, yet woke to the unsettling creak of footsteps in the hallway. She told herself it was nothing. Morning light filtered through thin curtains, gilding her tired face. Sofia straightened her shoulders, ready to step into a world she had only imagined. She didn't notice how the shadows seemed to follow her movements, patient and unyielding, waiting for their turn to claim her. The morning haze clung to Milan like a veil, muting the brilliance Sofia had admired the night before. She dressed carefully, smoothing the wrinkles from her second-hand skirt, willing it to pass as something more elegant. Her heart raced as she entered the hotel lobby, where her agent had promised to meet her. He appeared near the velvet chairs, a tall man in a charcoal suit, his smile polished, eyes sharp. "Sofia, yes? Welcome. You will do well here." His hand brushed hers too long as he guided her toward a black car waiting outside. "Where are we going?" she asked softly. "To possibility," he replied, voice too smooth to question. The car wound through narrow streets until it stopped before a studio, its glass windows reflecting cold daylight. Inside, the air reeked faintly of perfume and cigarette smoke. Men in dark clothes leaned against walls, watching silently as women shifted nervously on high stools. Cameras flashed. Laughter burst too loud, and contracts sat on clipboards thick with unread words. Sofia stood frozen until a girl with dark hair approached. "First time?" she asked in accented English. "Yes. I'm Elena." The girl's smile was thin but kind. "Don't let them see you're scared." They sat side by side as assistants measured their hips and murmured in Italian. The men's eyes lingered too long, turning admiration into ownership. Sofia tried to swallow the unease curling in her stomach. She told herself it was normal, just part of the world she wanted. As the day stretched, whispers drifted through the waiting models. Stories of girls who came for castings and never returned, of contracts signed in haste, leading to places no one spoke of. Elena leaned close, her voice low. "Be careful with him, the one who brought you. He's not just an agent, he decides who disappears." The words stung, but Sofia forced a smile. She wanted to believe her path was different, that her hunger for success would shield her. Still, the warning settled like a stone in her chest. That night, she and Elena walked together under dim streetlights, their shadows stretching long on the pavement. Elena lit a cigarette, exhaling into the cold air. "Why did you come here?" she asked. "To give my mother a better life. To be someone. And you?" Elena's eyes flickered. "To run away. Sometimes I think I chose the wrong place." They laughed softly, but the laughter cracked, revealing fear beneath. Back in her small room, Sofia unfolded the photograph of her mother again. She stared at the familiar face, whispering promises. Yet her thoughts drifted back to the eyes that had followed her all day, the contracts she couldn't read, the way her agent never gave details. Near midnight, the phone in her room rang. She hesitated, then answered. His voice slid through the line. "Tomorrow, new opportunity. Be ready." She tried to ask where, but the call ended abruptly. The silence afterward pressed heavy against her chest. She set the phone down with trembling hands. In the window, her reflection wavered against the city lights, still hopeful but no longer certain. Behind her, the shadows in the room seemed to lengthen, patient, as though they knew something she did not. The next morning, Sofia dressed quickly, heart unsteady as she stepped once more into the city's restless rhythm. The black car was waiting outside, its windows tinted, the driver silent. She slid inside, clutching her bag as though it could protect her. The agent sat beside her, his cologne sharp, his smile unreadable. "Today," he said, tapping the folder in his lap, "you begin your real career." "What kind of work?" she asked. "Exclusive, private. You'll earn more than you ever dreamed." He didn't explain further. His silence carried weight, as though answers were luxuries she hadn't yet earned. The car pulled into a quiet street where tall shutters blocked the sunlight. Inside the dim apartment, the air smelled of stale wine and paper. A heavy desk dominated the room, piled with documents. The agent slid one across the surface toward her. "Sign this," he said, his tone leaving no space for refusal. She picked up the contract. The text ran in dense Italian, foreign and unyielding. Her eyes caught fragments: exclusive rights, relocation, withdrawal forbidden. Her throat tightened. "I don't understand all of this," she whispered. His gaze hardened. "Do you want to be a model, or do you want to go back to that village with nothing? This is the only way." The pen felt cold in her hand. She thought of her mother's hands, rough and tired. She thought of Elena's warning. She thought of the weight of expectation pressing against her chest. Slowly she wrote her name, each letter feeling like a piece of herself slipping away. The agent smiled, folding the contract neatly into the folder. "Good girl," he murmured. Afterward she sat in silence, her palms damp. Elena's face surfaced in her thoughts, the cigarette glow in the dark, her words about disappearance. Sofia wanted to run to her, to confess her fear, but instead she was led down a hallway lined with closed doors, each one seeming to hide secrets. At the end, a man waited, older, well-dressed, his eyes coldly assessing. He extended his hand. "So this is the new one," he said in Italian. The agent replied quickly. Words Sofia couldn't follow, but she caught the sharp edge of business in their tone. The man's hand lingered on hers, heavy, claiming. A shiver coursed through her, but she forced her lips into a smile. When they left, the street outside was eerily quiet. The agent placed a hand on her shoulder. "From now on, you belong to us. No questions, no complaints. You'll be taken care of." That night, back in her room, Sofia stared at the ceiling, the photograph of her mother clutched to her chest. She felt a cage closing, though no bars were visible. In the hallway, she heard footsteps stop at her door, lingering too long before fading away. She lay awake until dawn, her eyes wide open, knowing she had signed something that could not be undone. The days blurred into a rhythm Sofia had never chosen. A car would collect her at dusk, its tinted windows sealing her from the world outside. Each time, a new destination, lavish apartments, villas behind iron gates, dim hotel suites where curtains never opened. Always men waiting, always her agent's voice reminding her, "Smile, please them. This is your life now." The glamour she had imagined never appeared. There were no flashing cameras, no runways, only contracts of silence enforced by watchful eyes. Every time she tried to ask questions, the answers were delivered in glances sharper than words. One evening she sat in a high-backed chair, staring at the glittering city lights beyond the glass. A man in an expensive suit placed a hand on her knee, his grip tightening when she flinched. She forced herself to smile, tasting iron at the back of her throat. Inside, her thoughts screamed, but her body learned to stay still. Later that night, she returned to her room, with bruises hidden beneath her dress. She opened her suitcase, took out a notebook, and began to write. Letters to her mother filled the pages, unsent, unsendable. "I am working. I am safe. I will send money soon." She lied on paper, even to herself, because the truth felt unbearable. Elena visited her one evening, slipping into her room when the hall was quiet. "They own you now," she said, voice shaking. "The contract, it's a cage. I tried to break mine. They found me. I can't try again." Sofia clasped her friend's hand. "Then what do we do?" "We survive," Elena whispered. The word hung heavy. Survival was not the dream Sofia had carried on that train. Survival meant swallowing fear, disguising despair, and learning when silence was safer than protest. Weeks passed. Sofia learned the rules. Don't speak unless spoken to, never refuse, never ask where the money goes. Yet, with each day, a part of her faded. She caught glimpses of herself in mirrors, barely recognizing the hollow eyes staring back. One night, she was taken to a villa outside the city, its halls lined with oil paintings and locked doors. The silence there was suffocating. A client grew violent when she hesitated, his rage shattering glass, leaving her with a cut across her shoulder. She sat bleeding on the marble floor, while servants swept away shards indifferent to her trembling body. Her agent's voice echoed in her ear the next morning. "You embarrassed us. Do not forget, you belong here because of me. You will not ruin this." Her throat burned with words she could not say. She returned to her notebook, scribbling furiously. "I am not gone. I am still Sofia. I will find a way back." The ink smudged under her tears, but the act of writing became her only rebellion. As months folded into years, her world shrank to locked doors and controlled movements. She memorized the sound of keys turning, the weight of footsteps outside her room, the cold echo of laughter in places where joy never lived. One evening, when the city outside roared with celebration, Sofia pressed her forehead to the window glass, whispering her own name as though to remind herself she still existed. A flicker of hope sparked when she saw Elena across the courtyard, smoking in the shadows. Their eyes met, one fleeting connection, fragile but alive. And then, as quickly as it came, the moment was stolen. A guard stepped between them, the door slammed, and Sofia was alone once more. The sound of the lock clicking into place was louder than any scream. She sat in darkness, her hand pressed to her heart, whispering to herself, "There must be more than this. There must be a way out." But in that silence, the truth pressed closer. The longer she stayed, the less she belonged to herself. It was in the quiet corners of a restaurant that Sofia first met him. Marco was not like the others. No polished smile, no heavy ring glinting with power. He was a waiter, moving between tables with quiet ease. His eyes caught hers one evening when she sat with men who laughed too loudly, their hands too insistent. When she slipped away to the corridor, Marco appeared with a glass of water. "You don't look well," he said gently. "I never do," she whispered, surprising herself with the honesty. From that night he found reasons to linger, refilling her glass, guiding her to the back door for fresh air, offering small words that carried more comfort than any promise of wealth. In Marco's presence, Sofia remembered what kindness felt like. Weeks passed. Their meetings grew bolder, stolen moments in alleyways, whispers exchanged over the noise of the city. She confessed pieces of her life, never fully, but enough for him to understand the cage she lived in. "I want to leave," she told him one night, her voice breaking. "Then we'll leave together," he said. Hope, fragile and dangerous, bloomed inside her. She began to hide money beneath the lining of her suitcase, scraps of identity she could carry if freedom ever arrived. Each time the key turned in her door, she imagined Marco's hand pulling her away instead. But shadows thickened around her. The agent's eyes lingered longer, his questions sharper. Once, she caught him rifling through her belongings, his fingers brushing dangerously close to the photograph of her mother. "Why so many secrets, Sofia?" he asked with a smile that felt like a blade. She swallowed her fear, feigning innocence, but inside she knew someone suspected. Elena noticed too. She cornered Sofia in the bathroom of a villa, her whisper frantic. "They know you're planning something. Stop before it's too late." Sofia shook her head. "I can't stop. I need to breathe again." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "Then you'll die trying." The words clung to Sofia long after they parted. Yet each time she saw Marco, her resolve hardened. He promised train tickets, a safe place in the south where no one would find them. She let herself believe him, let herself imagine sunlight on her face without fear. But the walls seemed to close tighter, the guards watching her more closely. Every step felt followed, every whisper overheard. She lay awake at night, her packed bag hidden beneath the bed, her heart beating with both terror and hope. The escape was close. She could feel it. But so were the eyes in the shadows, waiting for the moment to strike. The night she was supposed to leave with Marco never came. Or perhaps it came too quickly. Sofia's suitcase was hidden beneath the bed, her heart racing with every creak of the hallway. She rehearsed the plan in whispers. Train tickets, a new city, freedom, but the door never opened to Marco's hand. Instead, the silence stretched until it felt like the walls themselves were closing in. And then she was gone. In early spring of 2009, a decade after she had left her mother at the train station, Sofia's name returned in ink across Italian newspapers. The headlines were brutal. Body of missing woman found near abandoned villa. The discovery came by accident. A caretaker at a countryside estate unlocked a cellar door long sealed by rust and dust. Inside, the smell of decay lingered. A shallow grave, hurried and careless, gave up what time had tried to keep hidden. The police report was clinical, almost detached. Female remains, mid-30s. Traces of jewelry. But a photograph in the file told more. The bracelet on her wrist, delicate silver, the same her mother had given her on the morning she left home. That single detail transformed Bones into a daughter, a sister, a life. Elena read the news first, staring at the bold print until the letters blurred. She pressed the paper against her chest, whispering Sofia's name like a prayer, like an apology. She had warned her. She had known. And yet, the guilt was hers to carry. Journalists circled quickly, hungry for the story. They painted her as a fallen model, another casualty of broken dreams. Old photographs surfaced, Sofia smiling shyly in front of her village home, another of her on the streets of Milan in her early days. The contrast was stark, innocence to tragedy, promise to ruin. Her mother's grief spilled across the small town she had left behind. Neighbors remembered the day Sofia departed, the hope in her step, the way her mother had clung to her coat. Now, years later, the same woman stood on her doorstep, holding the newspaper as though it were a death sentence. She whispered to anyone who would listen, "I told her not to trust them, I told her." In Milan, police officials offered little. There were murmurs of powerful men, whispers of trafficking networks tied to the modeling industry, names too dangerous to print. The case was declared under investigation, but no arrests followed. The silence around her death was louder than the truth it concealed. Marco's name never appeared in the reports. Some said he had vanished, others that he had been silenced. For Sofia's mother, his absence was another wound, another unanswered question in a life now defined by loss. The newspapers moved on within weeks. New scandals took their place. Fresh tragedies filled the columns. But for those who had known her, Elena, her mother, the small circle of women who still whispered her name, Sofia's story clung like a shadow. Her body had been found, but the truth remained buried. And somewhere, in the silence of locked rooms and shuttered villas, other girls waited, their faces pressed to the glass, wondering if they too would one day be reduced to a headline.